Welcome everybody back to Where the F is My Village. Hi, Shelly.
Hi, Stephanie Ferris. How are you?
Oh my goodness, I'm delighted. Today's the day of appointments, and I'm so excited to be productive.
I failed just that I'm trying to make my voice lower.
Oh,
Podcast.
yeah. Well, uh, I'll just send you to my voice coach, and I'm sure she'd be like, would love to help you.
I know your voice
I
coach.
know. I just ask her for some help.
No. And she'll say, these are things you need to do. And I'll say, yeah, no, I'm not doing
Yeah.
those.
You,
And then it will be over. So
I
I
think
think
your
I'm
voice
just going to
sounds great.
pretend.
It's just all in your head, I think.
Okay. All right. Let's talk. Let's
Okay.
talk about.
Let's talk about we don't have a title for today's podcast yet, but I kind of wrote a couple things. Parental people, remember hobbies or a social life? Trying to remember yourself in the parenting vortex. So I personally, before we had kids, one of the things I really struggled with is my identity. And like, I didn't want to be quote unquote just a mom, which isn't a thing really, except for I was really afraid of that. I was at a thing years before I had kids, and an exercise they had us do was like they had all these magazines, and it was like, tear out pictures from the magazine that you think represent you. And this woman, every picture she tore
I have
out
to
was
say,
parenting.
I already have anxiety. I
Well,
already have anxiety just as you're describing this.
I don't even remember what I mean, I probably, everything I tore out was like beach houses and like I'm a professional actor. Like I'm sure that's everything that I tore out. But everything that this woman, who's still a friend of mine, she's a wonderful person, and this isn't anything against her, but everything that she tore out was like a mom with a kid doing something and like babies, and it was all momming, and it kind of freaked me out. I was like, I don't ever want the only thing on my collage to be me in a stroller. Like I just was struggling with that even before we had children.
Right.
And now, you know,
Was that like a precursor to a vision board? I'm still hung up
yeah,
on this activity.
it was a church activity, so you don't need to like no professionals had researched what we were doing. It was just, I think it was just
Okay.
somebody was like, this could be a fun. I don't even remember what the point was, frankly. And it was 20 years ago, so there's just no telling. But it freaks me out, and I think I don't like being labeled anyway. Like when I went to college, my mom was in a sorority. It was really important to her that I go through Rush. And just for me personally, like I hated every part of that. And then I was in a sorority for a year before I quit.
Wait, time out. How did I not know this about you? How?
I'm not like, woo, I was in a sorority. It's like I survived being a sorority for a year.
Well, now you have to tell everyone what sorority it was. Where'd you go to school? Remind me.
I went to Oklahoma State, and my mom was a tri-delt, so I was
stop
a
it.
tri-delt.
Stop it. Oh my goodness.
For a year, just a year, chill out. So many of my friends had amazing experiences in sororities, and honestly, I'm still friends with some of the people that are like loved it. I just hated like being literally anywhere and somebody going, "What house are you in?" And then you'd say, "Well, I'm a tri-delt," and then they would be like, "I've defined you as a person now." Like, this is everything
You know what?
you are.
You know what this relates back to is the whole discussion we had with Xavier last time.
Sure, yes.
But that whole mono mind where we label people and put them into boxes, and then we know who they are completely based on the box that we've put them in.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I hated.
You didn't want to be known completely as a tri-delt.
No, and I don't, I've told Casey before, so I'm a sales rep. I really prefer to think of myself as a consultant. I always say, if I solve problems for my clients, the sales will come. Like I'm not in there with the widget of the week trying to sell something. But I've told him two things. One, if I ever go missing, they better use a fucking good picture. Like, it is so upsetting to me when these women go missing and they use the shittiest picture of them. Like, there are better pictures, okay? Like, let her look nice on Dateline. Let her look nice on the Today Show. And also, I don't want it to
Oh my
be
goodness.
Oklahoma sales rep missing in Colorado or whatever. And here's a terrible picture of her. Like, it just.
Can I just say, it means I am just processing the fact that you have thought through all of this.
It
I
makes
mean,
me
it
angry when
feels
these.
like, wow. My mind is blown this morning because first, Delta, 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 can I help you,
Mm-hmm.
help you, help you?
Oh, we would get in trouble if we answered the phone like that, but it was really fun, so I did.
Oh my goodness. Okay, first, that whole thing. Because let me tell you, my experience with sororities was mopping up vomit on the floor of the bar I managed on Campus Corner, sorority girl vomit specifically. And okay, that was it. That was all. And then now,
Well, it makes you
no.
feel any better. I actually spent the rest of my college years at the Stonewall Tavern, which has since been renamed and is a hole in the wall, dirty. Like,
Oh,
I just
okay.
liked being able to just be wearing my flannel and my jeans and my clay beaded necklace and just roll in there
Stop
and not look perfect.
it.
I did not
Okay.
like going to the places that you had to be like all gussied up.
I'm learning so
Gussied.
much about you,
Yes.
Gussie.
Yes.
And then,
Gussied.
two, the fact that you have processed through this whole look, husband, if I go missing, here's the protocol.
But you just don't, you turn on the news and they're talking about this person that's gone missing and it is the blurriest, least flattering picture. And y'all, I have a well curated selfie collection that gets posted. These are only good pictures. You can right click it off of Facebook and you can make that the box that's over the newscaster's shoulder. There's no need for the terrible
Oh,
picture.
goodness. Okay. I had not thought about it, but I definitely will now.
If you ever go missing, I will be sure to supply the people with a wonderful picture of you.
That's
So
hilarious.
anyway, yeah, I think maybe I thought about my identity so much because I was always a performer. I
Mm.
mean, I was gonna be a professional actor. So I mean, it's just the things you think about. But I can't believe we're talking about my history as being in a sorority today. That wasn't on the outline. That wasn't on the outline.
It was not, but we just had to go there. That's so
Well, I
interesting.
I just want to reiterate that I do, and I'm friends with people who had a lovely experience in sororities and fraternities. Being a theater major just kind of turned out to be my sorority. I mean, it was
Hmm.
just my whole life. Class all morning, worked in the scene shop or the costume shop all afternoon, had rehearsals all night, then walked
Hmm.
across the street to the bar. I mean, like, that was
Yeah,
my
you
whole
were a
life.
theater person. That was a theater person.
Yes.
So while we're talking about identity crises, I've had more identity crises in the last 15 years than I can keep up with because because I was not a mom until I was 39, and then I became a mom of three within I mean, the first two came, one had to go away, the third one came 3 months later, and then the second one came back a year later. So I went from zero kids to three kids in about 18 months. And then I went from zero kids to grandmother in under 10 years. So my friends joke with me that I'm an overachiever. Uh,
Just try to
now,
cram it into a very
yeah,
short time frame.
exactly. Like I just wanted the condensed version of parenting. That none of that was on purpose. Absolutely none of that was on purpose. So I went from being a professional woman who had restored a historic bungalow, who had traveled at least domestically, and who was the person who coordinated all my friends and coworkers. I was kind of like Shelley, the cruise director, into softball leagues and happy hours to not using a babysitter for 18 months to 2 years. So I literally was with my kids every night. Their biological great aunt did take them every once in a while. Unfortunately, that couldn't continue because we ran into, let's call them snags for
Sure.
the sake of privacy. And so, yeah, so I went from being pretty darn free and pretty darn self absorbed to parenting three children, and not just three children, but three high needs children, to use Xavier's word. I like that, high needs. Tricky kids, as you were. And so I didn't know who the heck I was for that, that 18
Well, you're
months to
sitting
two
there
years.
just going like, there's all these things that I liked doing. This is how I spent my time. I mean, for
Mm,
me, every time we added a kid to our house, which, it was, let's see, my oldest is 3 years older than his brother, and then that one's 22 months older than the other one. So, anyway, every time we added a new baby, I feel like there was a year of just like figuring it out. Like, there's a new
mm,
person. How is this working? I mean, just how are we doing everything? Like, now there's two, Casey and I used to alternate reading and putting the baby to bed. Well, now there's two. So one of us is doing one and one of us is doing the other. And then who is making dinner? Like, what, when do we get to eat? For years, we ate dinner after the kids were in bed. We hated the part where we were shoving food in our mouth and not even getting to enjoy anything because, I mean, let me tell you what, a 5-year-old can shove his dinner in his mouth in like less than 9 minutes, and then they're off causing chaos. And you're like, I just sat down. So, I mean, I would say until maybe the middle of COVID, the kids were old enough that we were
mm.
willing to actually eat with them. Now, we sat down every night with them while they ate. We would actually oftentimes line them up on the island and the bar stools, and we would stand in the kitchen and chat with them while they ate. But I wanted to like actually taste my food and not feel rushed.
Yeah.
So we didn't eat with them until very recently. And
I
now they're
think that's
capable
so
of
smart.
sitting. Yeah, I just gave up. I was like, this sucks. This sucks. They've thrown all their spaghetti on the floor
Hmm.
and everybody needs something. So, yeah, the adjustment. And Casey and I would sit down with our TV trays and we'd turn on a show and we
Hmm.
would enjoy the taste of our food. We
Oh,
didn't often
that's,
eat this, we didn't even eat the same thing as them. I mean, it was like, here's your mac and cheese. I'm going to make something else for dinner.
so I'm back at that stage. I'm back at this. So my sweet husband will say, hey, why don't we get something to eat? And so we'll go to a restaurant and my food will be cold by the time I get to eat it. And the same thing happens at home. And possibly that's because I don't know what I'm doing. But it's,
You're new at it again. Yes.
yeah, I mean, but there's a lot of, I need this, I need that. Can you cut this? Can
Well, and then
you?
the second you're like, okay, I'm going to eat. Oh, I have to go to the bathroom. I mean,
Oh
it's
my
just,
gosh. I swear to God, I was just about to say that. So I literally have started preempting, like we will go to and we don't go to restaurants very often because weeknights, by the time we get home from daycare and do everything, it's time to go to bed. But we'll go to a restaurant and I will say we're going to order and then we're going to go to the bathroom and we're going to use the bathroom.
that's not enough for my kids. It's got to, like, I think they just sit there and then they're like, I'm a little bored. I want to go to the bathroom. Like, I
Yeah,
just
no,
want to
I
take a
did
little
not.
tour of the
Yeah,
restaurant real fast.
okay, so I did not say it was successful. I said I was
Good
doing it.
effort, though. That's a good effort, though.
Because I'm like, okay, let's time this properly. We ordered, we're going to go to the bathroom, we're going to come back to the table, food's going to arrive, we're going to eat it. Uh, then we might need to use the bathroom again. That's what is in my head. In reality, what happens, and I think it's exactly what you're saying, because my son used to do this too. I need to go to the bathroom. And so then you play this game of chicken with a toddler where you're
Because
like,
what
do you
if she's going
really
to
need
wet
to
her
use the
pants?
bathroom? Yeah, like, am I going to put you through and everyone else around us the trauma of you urinating yourself here at the restaurant? Or am I going to abandon the food that I just ordered and paid for a good 10 to 12 minutes while we go explore the restroom facilities? Like,
We
which of those
only
am I going to do?
We still to this day will only eat with the kids for the most part at Mexican restaurants or Italian because the second you
Mhm.
sit down, there's something to eat. Like, I don't think my kids
Yeah.
know other restaurants exist. Like, I'm not sure that they, where's the chips and queso? What is this?
Yeah,
Because they can
and this
immediately start eating. And then the waiter walks by and they get our drink order. And I'm like, and this is what we're all having. And just bring it out when it's ready.
it just
We,
bring it.
we're trying to make this a 30-minute, like, let's go.
Yeah, let's talk about the difference. So, my kids are now 18, 21, and 24, so they're not kids, obviously. Um, and they were actually really good about. I really didn't have issues with my kids when it came to eating. They were really, really good about eating. My granddaughter's a different story. And so, in between kids and granddaughter, there was this period where my husband and I would go to adult restaurants that were, you could even classify as bougie.
Yes, that's my
Now,
favorite activity on a date night.
right,
I love it.
yeah. Now, my husband was not bougie when we met, and I have successfully converted him kind of more than I intended. We went to a French restaurant, believe it or not, in Edmond, Oklahoma. It's one of the best restaurants I've ever been to, and it's because the guy who is the chef there is from France, had great restaurants in France, met a woman who lived in Edmond and relocated. And we all are very thankful for, I don't know, her being very alluring because now there's this really great French restaurant. But we went there a few years ago, and my husband is now spoiled forever because he'll say anywhere else, he'll go, this restaurant's really loud. It's very loud here. And the courses come too fast. And I'm like, who are you?
Well,
Because
yes, exactly.
this is
Yeah.
not this is not who you were. Anyway, he is also the person who is responsible for introducing my kids and my granddaughter to Golden Corral.
My kids, I'm never taking them there. They don't need to know what happens. They don't need to know it
Oh,
exists. The trips to the buffet, I can't even imagine. And just the
oh
stress of
yeah.
like them being sanitary, like them not missing, like
Hmm.
not just sticking their hand in a thing of rice and
Yeah,
throwing it on their
yeah.
plate. That just
When
sounds
you
way too stressful.
anytime you're at a restaurant and you have to go, no, 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 no. That's a bad restaurant
My kids are
experience.
like,
Like,
what? And I'm like, I said no 10 times. You could have stopped on like the third to fifth one.
stop it. Like, no. Anyway, so yeah, I like food and I like dining out. And I will say that I have lost that part of myself. It's one of the reasons my husband and I travel because I can sit down and have a meal like an actual civilized human.
It is our favorite activity on a date night. Like it has to be pretty unique circumstance for me to waste a babysitter on going to a movie, even though I love
Mm-hmm,
going to movies. But I'm
mm-hmm,
like, we have a nice TV at home. It will be uninterrupted. We can just rent this in 6 months when it comes out. But the really nice restaurant, I really
mm-hmm.
want to go to. So that's what we do.
All right. I'm
Okay,
glad that we
so
got that figured out.
yes, very important use of our time. I love food. Okay, so one of the things that I kind of wanted to mention is when you lose yourself, as most people do, some people find themselves when they become parents, okay? And
Hmm.
I'm so almost even jealous. Like, that's great. I'm so
Yeah.
glad that that's not me though.
That was my mom, and I think I need to say that especially today because it's her birthday. She's been gone 7 years, but my mom, when she was a child, wanted to be a mother. I mean, that's what she wanted to do, and it was, and she was a great mom, and I think she did find herself when she became a mom. I am not her.
No, and I mean, I just think that really honestly, more people aren't than are
Hmm.
probably, but it's societally like it's not something people feel comfortable talking about. I remember one time talking to someone about Casey and I going out to dinner when our kids were little, if we could get a date night once a month maybe, or maybe more often, but usually less often than that. It was really important to us. Like, my husband is my favorite person. I want to spend time with him more than anyone else. I love
Hmm.
him the most. He's my favorite person. And this person said to me, gosh, you guys go on more date nights than like almost all the couples I know combined. and like way more than
Hmm.
we do. And I wanted to be like, why are you being a martyr? Like you too can ask grandma or someone to, or meet for lunch. If your kids are all at daycare or school and you have an opportunity and you have a lunch hour, go to lunch. But I was like, sorry. I mean, I don't know what you want me
I
to
was going to say, like, how do you respond to that?
like me
Uh,
going on a date is not taking away from you for sure. And I personally believe that the more people that love on my kids, the better for them. I don't think it's taking anything away from them for me to be gone and go out to dinner. Like I
yeah,
just,
I'm still trying to figure out what that's about. Like, was that about like you're too ooey gooey about your husband, or you're a negligent mom, or all of the
I
above?
think it was judgmental that we were leaving our kids and going to do something. I
Oh
don't know.
gosh. Okay, this is a whole other podcast. Take
Yeah.
it from someone who, okay, my kids were not the reason I was divorced. I want to be really clear about that, but take it from someone who's been married, divorced, and remarried the same man. Uh, oh my gosh, marriage is work, and you have to make time to be with your spouse. You have to. And
That's
I
it.
know some
Yeah.
people, to a certain extent, it's privilege that allows you to hire babysitters and do. But I mean, you don't have to hire babysitters. You don't have to go eat at an expensive restaurant. But you do have to actually make time for yourself and make time to spend with whoever you're in a relationship with.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the standards, especially for women, are so unfair. This is one of my favorite things to talk about is the standards for moms. So, this researcher, Suzanne M. Bianchi, I think that's how you say her name. She's the chairwoman of the Department of Sociology at the University of Maryland. Okay. Her research on how much time women spend with children now versus the 60s, I think is so fascinating. So, it basically says that surprisingly, married and single parents today spend more time teaching, playing with, and caring for their children than parents did 40 years ago. And that would be usually when one mom was like at home, usually the mom. And that time on childcare activities increased to an average of 12.9 hours a week in 2000, and that's up from 10.6 hours in 1965. And in 1965, most women were at home with their children. So now, basically, what this is saying is working women have somehow managed to shoehorn in an extra like 3 hours a week. And then this is my favorite statistic. And for married fathers, the time spent on childcare more than doubled from 2.6 hours to 6.5 hours. Oh, how little is required of them in some ways with all these studies. Like the mom is over here doing 12.9 hours and probably still working full time. And I just think the expectations, gosh, these Gen Xers, and I think some of it is a reaction to like most Gen Xers were kind of taking care of themselves, making their afternoon snack, doing things. I personally never felt neglected as a result of that. It just didn't even occur to me that my mom should be playing with me. I called her
Hmm.
once after I had kids and I said, I don't always remember everything accurately, but did you like play with me when I was a kid? Like get on the floor and play Barbies? And she's like, no, I had stuff to do. Got it. Okay, got it. But I should be spending every second. There's this expectation. And some of it I think is kind of like a boomerang reaction to my parents didn't play with me when I was a kid. So I'm really going to get in there and
Yeah.
play now. Um, and I think it's too much because also, where is the time for you to do literally anything you want to do? Like literally anything.
Yeah, I have to. So I have to jump in here and say, I think I'm probably not a normal Gen X parent because I'm more along the lines of, hey, you have plenty of stuff to do. No, I'm not going to play Barbies with. Now I read. I read to my kids every night. I read to my granddaughter every night. There are things I do consistently. I think bath time is, a nice time to kind of play a little bit. But the rest of the time, I'm like, hey, I've got stuff to do. Here's how, because there was one of me and three of them. And so in order for the house of cards I had built to not collapse, I had to be doing laundry. I had to be doing, making a meal, etc. So I think I'm not I think I'm not a typical Gen X mom, but my mom was not a typical boomer mom. Um, we were never neglected. We were not latchkey kids. So maybe I'm like a boomer mom. Maybe I'm the one who's like, look, here's a key, and just let yourself into the house. Actually, I am that mom. I'm realizing.
But I think what is frustrating to me is just the expectation that all of our time and all of our focus at all times should be on our children. And I'm not saying mine isn't, but I also, like, we've really limited screens in our house in the last couple of weeks. And they come to me and they're like, I'm bored. Do you want to play Uno? Do you want to play this? And I'm like, no, no, no. I didn't reduce the amount of screen time available so that I could be your entertainment. That's not what is happening here. So I usually say, yes, I would love to play Uno, but I'm doing these 5 things. And so when I'm done, after dinner, we can play Uno or whatever. I try not to say no all day, but also I'm not here to entertain you, bro. I have stuff to do. I call my kids bro because they call me bro. So
I love it.
I'm their bro. But and I also am like, guys, I am reading a book because I want to read a book right now. And
But let me also say we're modeling that for our kids when we do that, especially our female children. And I used to feel bad about it, and then I stopped because we're modeling the behavior that we want our kids to have as adults. And there is something, you don't want your kids to be martyrs. You want your kids to do what makes them happy, what brings them joy. And so demonstrating to them that that's what adults can do and should do is not a bad thing.
well, no, I don't think it's healthy to model for them completely losing yourself
No.
in being their mom and there is nothing else to do. And listen, I know that I am making it sound like it's easy to find ways to do that. In all honesty, I think it wasn't until my youngest was 8 and my kids started just being able to like ride their bikes to the park in the neighborhood around the block. And suddenly it's like, what did I used to do on Saturday mornings
Yeah.
when it was up to me what I did? And I've been kind of lost, like, this is weird. The kids are off doing something.
Yeah.
But I would say that for the years that led up to that, I have desperately tried to find, even if it's just during the lockdown, what I did was I finally like needed time to myself was I watched Downton Abbey from the beginning to the end. And the kids would come in and I would say, hey, I'm watching Downton Abbey. Would you like to watch it with me? No one wanted to watch Downton Abbey. It was awesome because they were like, sure. And they'd sit down and they're like, what is this about? And I'm like, well, it's like 100 years ago in England and da da da. And they were so bored in 30 seconds that it was like a cure all to anyone wanting to hang out with me while I was watching it. It was amazing. I picked something, invited them to do it with me, but they turned me down. It was fantastic.
That's pretty strategic. Let's back up to, I want to talk about this some more. Let's back up to what the data shows about modern parents in comparison to parents from the 60s. I think that's the 60s, 40 years ago, because that's more like the 70s.
Well, it says
Or
1965, but the
Okay.
standard, like, think about this. Like, my mom was a stay-at-home mom until I was in 8th grade. And according to the data, a stay-at-home mom who was around us all the time would have only spent 10 hours a week on focused attention on the kids, which means could have spent 60 hours a week, but was watching Donahue and folding clothes. That's what was
That's so
happening.
funny. That's so funny because I have very vivid memories of my mom watching Oprah and folding clothes. So, what's interesting though is because I was very interested in this data when it was released and continue to read about this kind of research. What's interesting though is before I saw this research, I assumed that women, well, parents in the 40s, 50s, and 60s that it was flip-flopped, that parents in the 40s, 50s, and 60s were spending more time with their kids, not less. And I think it's interesting. I would like to understand how it is that we sort of sentimentalized that time and those parents and assumed that we were worse. I mean, because that's what we did. Because I think I'm not alone in assuming that that those parents spent more time with their kids than I do. And so I'd really like a super smart person to let us know, okay, here's why that happened. Because it was sort of like the halcyon days of nuclear families. It wasn't really, but it seems that way. And it seems as though there were all these kind of magical mom moments that I couldn't possibly live up to. And then reality is just something completely different. All of that fascinates me. It's interesting how we make assumptions about how things are that are not based in reality
Well, and
whatsoever.
I think there's so much like, particularly on moms, this like mom guilt of, it's so funny. I've asked Casey before, I've said, hey, when you have to work late or you're gone every night for a week, like, do you feel guilty? He's like,
Mm.
no. He does not
Mm.
feel guilty for a split second because he knows he needs to be at work and things need to be done and he's not neglecting anyone. It's just what needs to happen. Do I feel guilty? Yeah, I sure do. Do I feel guilty that my kid had an Arbor Day thing yesterday that was like all day at the park planting trees and so super cool and I couldn't go because I had to work? And he's like, you can come. We're going to be there all day. And I'm like, buddy, I can't. I can't. And did
Mm.
he even expect my husband to be there or ask him? No. There's no
Oh,
expectation on my husband to be at that. No, just me.
I do have to say, so I want to make sure that we don't sound kind of male bashy. The difference, so there have been, I became a mom 14 years ago, and now I'm raising a granddaughter. So, let's say 10 years in between. It is really interesting to me when I was raising my kids and people in my generation, it was always moms in the waiting room at the dance school. It was always moms at the PTA meetings. It was always mom at the doctor's office. I love walking in to the dance school and seeing a whole bunch of dads with sparkly, glittery pink dance bags on their shoulders. And they are totally cool with that. Like it's not odd or interesting or different. It is their regular everyday thing. I love it.
Well, and I'm
And
not
that's
saying, I
not that
mean,
long.
no, and I'm not saying that Casey isn't incredibly involved. I'm saying
Yeah.
that the guilt of, like, listen, the school they used to go to,
Hmm.
the moms were expected to volunteer at like the Valentine's Day party and the holiday party and the field day. And they had one day a year that was daddy volunteer day.
Oh
And
my
it
God. What?
pissed me off. It was like
Hmm.
daddy dogs or some, I don't remember what it was called. And they would advertise it and be like, this is the day the dads are all going to be at school helping. And I'm like, when the fuck? What are you? Why is the expectation so low? Like,
Wow.
I
Wow. How
get,
many
I,
years ago was this? This couldn't have been that long
this
ago.
is still happening. The school is across the street. They still do this.
Are you
And
kidding?
and it's like a big deal that the dads sign up and they go do the thing. And the rest of the volunteering, it's just the expectations. It is not a level, it's not a reflection of the level of involvement of my husband to say that the
Right.
societal expectations are more,
Hmm.
still continue to be more geared towards moms. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
my husband's running the donuts in and picking sick kids up in the middle of the day. Like he's doing all of the things. I'm just
Right.
saying that the societal pressure on him isn't there. And this is my fault. This is my fault that I'm sitting here feeling guilty because I'm doing X, Y, or Z. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today is that as a result of that guilt, you lose yourself.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
lose what are my interests? How would I want to spend my time? Because it is all dictated by your children's universe. And I don't think it's healthy. And I think many modern women, particularly, fall into this. Yeah, and I'm
I
sure men
yeah.
can too, depending on like if
Hmm.
they're, I don't know, I'm just imagining like a sporty dad getting super into the sporty whatever, like lacrosse or whatever, and at every game and
Yeah.
driving across the country to take them to everything. And then they don't have a life. I just only know my life.
Is that like Sporty Spice?
Yeah, I
Sporty
guess.
Dad?
We're not
Sporty
super
Dad?
sporty. We're artists at our house, so we don't like get all of the sports stuff very well.
No, I don't at all. This, so what you're saying reminds me of something. So in my work, sometimes I do assessments for companies. And often those assessments, you have to pick your preference, like the Myers-Briggs, for example. You have to pick your preference. So your preference is not what you're not not what you have to do all day or what you're good at, it's what you prefer to do, the preferred behavior. So for, I don't know, 3 decades now, I've run into women, and it is always women who go, I have no idea. I
I
don't
know.
know
Oh
what my
yeah.
preference is because for years I have done whatever needed to be done in whatever way it needed to be done. And often they don't articulate it like this until later on, weeks down the line or months down the line. But I know exactly what's happening because I've seen it over and over and over again. And I am one of those people who went, oh gosh, I don't know which of these I prefer. I would just do whichever one needs doing. And that is how you lose yourself, right? You lose what what your innate preferences are because you have to adjust so much. Not have to, we choose to adjust based on society's expectations, besides the very real, I mean, in addition to the very real expectations of people need to get fed and get to school and beds need to be made, right? But it is, yeah, it is really, really easy to lose yourself. I actually, mentioned earlier that I have had so many identity crises. I can't even keep up with them all. I was reminded today because of Facebook memories, which that's a whole other podcast. Facebook memories mess with me sometimes. I had a photo pop up from 8 years ago of when I was thin. My kids were virtually grown, so the kids were definitely teenagers and definitely doing things on their own. I got thin. I started going to hear live music again. I bought a midlife crisis roadster that had the full on midlife crisis sports package. It was awesome. I started adultifying my house. I bought antiques that I never would have put in the house while the kids were here. And my family therapist told me that she saw parents with kids who had been diagnosed with RAD very often do that, where their health improved. They were able to start doing the things that they enjoyed again. I love live music, and so I was going to see a lot of live music and traveling a little bit, just weekend jaunts and stuff. And then stuff happened with my granddaughter, and I became her guardian, and like so all of that stuff went away. Now I have a very nondescript Mimi car that looks like every other vehicle in the Costco parking lot because, we have to, my granddaughter will say, Mimi, hit the button so we can see where the car is. So I have to hit the like emergency
Because
button
it looks like every single
because it
car.
looks
Oh my
like
gosh.
every other car, right? Um, and I gained all the weight back. I still have some grown up antiques that I sort of cringe every time any child walks by them. So I've just been on this kind of teeter totter of who am I for the last really 15 years. And I mean, and it messes with you. I'm still struggling with how the heck do I do this and who am I, which sounds kind of pathetic.
But I don't think it is. I think it happens just so much for all parents. And I think, to many parents who are in it, and that's what anybody who's like all their kids are under 5, I'm like,
Mm.
ooh, you are in it. You're in it. Like,
Yes.
there's like, it's just swimming for your life, but it's gonna get a little better. So I'm not trying to sit over here and like oversimplify. Like now that my youngest kid is 8, I'm able to do these other things. But I think it's important. Like I really hate self care being advertised as like general human maintenance. Like
Take a bath.
you
Take a
took a
bath.
bath. Good
Everything will be
job.
fine. Take a
Didn't
bath in
that
the bathroom that you renovated for $30,000 to be a spa bathroom that really just has like a lot of kids' toys in it. Like,
right?
I mean, that's not self care.
Well,
I'm
it's
sorry, it's
like,
not.
do yourself. I think I read these articles all the time that are like, your self care, like take a bath, go to the store by yourself. Like, this is all just maintaining your household and like cleaning your body. So I think it's important. How can we? I've always said Target needs a bar and like drop off daycare at the front.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
you know how much more
Oh
money I
yeah.
would spend if I didn't have the kids with me and I had had a glass of wine? I would be like, oh, I need new towels. Oh, but instead they're with you, which I can't think in the store if my children are with me because I have
No,
expectations for
no.
the behavior.
Hmm.
Oh, anyway, so that's a whole other
I
thing. So
mean,
maybe,
I
I don't
started
know.
to say, I couldn't, um, every time I went to Target with my kids, there were three of them. They were hanging all over the cart. Also, they were black, still are black. And so people stared at us like crazy. And there was, I don't know that we made a trip to Target without someone walking up to me to tell me how to do my kids' hair. And so,
I was
yeah, I
thinking,
mean, like it was distraction city. So I love the idea of a bar and drop in daycare. That's how CarMax does it. There's no bar, but CarMax has like babysitting.
they do.
Oh yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh, that's so interesting because for some reason buying a car needs to take all damn day. I don't get it. Like I sell
yeah.
millions of dollars in specialized equipment and it's as simple as I need your like social security number and sign the contract. I have no idea why a car
Yeah.
needs to take all day.
Well,
Why do I live
yeah.
here now? What are we doing?
So let me say, okay, CarMax is not paying me to say this. Um, CarMax does not take all damn day. I've bought cars via the internet from CarMax. And I mean, probably 6 cars at this point. I love CarMax. And I love that, yeah, you can walk in and go, um, hey, I'm going to take my kids over here to this little playroom while I sign the paperwork with you. Or
I
while
love
I
that.
go while I go drive the car and make sure it really is the car that I want. And then you're done. I mean, it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours tops, and you have keys and you're out the door. So CarMax did not pay me to say that,
If CarMax
friends.
would like to sponsor our program, we would welcome it.
Seriously. Well, and talk about identity crisis. I mean, because there was no way in hell, I'm too vain to drive a minivan. There's no way that I was driving a minivan. And I'm sure there are a lot of people listening to this who are just bothered at how much I hate minivans. But it was not happening. But no, I will say I found a Ford Flex. Like that was the mom car for me. So much storage. It looks like you might be part of the mafia or you could be a mom. Um, I
You
thought they
know
were
what?
the
It's
ugly.
kind of a fine line. It's a fine line
It really
between.
is. It really is a fine line. And I loved that thing. They're super ugly until you get used to them. My car criteria the entire time I was raising kids was excellent stereo system. That was kind of it. Excellent stereo. Oh, and it had to go fast, which sounds really awful, but I wanted it to accelerate quickly. And so I'm telling you, Ford Flex, excellent mom car,
Well,
excellent.
what I love about that though is that you managed to provide a car that would be suitable in work for parenting. And then you were like, these are the things that are for me in the
Oh
car.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you found a place for them because that's kind of the whole point of the episode today is like how can you
Hmm.
take the off the rail situation that is raising children in modern America and how can you make any part of it for you? Like any
Right.
part of it for you. And you know, literally guys, it can be something small if you don't have time. I mean, it can be you really love gardening or which I hate gardening, so I don't get it, but I can understand why someone would love it. There's solitude, You're,
Mm-hmm.
cultivating something, you can see the project go, journaling, even just saying, I'm going to read a book. Like I
Mm-hmm.
started kind of taking my time back and reading again during lockdown. And I couldn't handle anything of substance. I was too stressed out, had, working from home. The whole world is ending apparently. Like I couldn't, and I love like really interesting thriller books. And I think that was around the time like Bridgerton came out. And I was like, oh, that's a book. Okay. So I read all the books that lady has written, which is like 50 books. I read all of them. And you know what? It's the same thing over and over again. They introduce a man, they introduce a woman, there are complications, there's some steamy chapters. It all ends up like fine usually. But it
Mm-hmm.
was like I would just sit in the sun with my Kindle and read the trashy. No, I actually have stopped. I checked them all out from the library. I think I read 175 of these types of books because I read all of hers. And then I was
Mm-hmm.
like, well, what else is similar to this? So then she like recommended some things on her website or something. So I read all of that lady's books because I could just literally like sit down and I was reading about something that didn't matter and it gave me something to do, took my brain off the world
Mm-hmm.
was on fire. Oh, and then I started reading celebrity biographies.
Oh
Like
my goodness.
I read
Okay.
like every book by every Brat Pack actor. So that was really fun, like Rob Lowe and Andrew McCarthy and actors that I really followed in my childhood. And it was interesting to read about their stories, but also very low, like barrier and low mental fatigue or whatever to read about. Like I
uh,
love World War II books and I couldn't read a
I think
World
a
War II
lot of
book.
people couldn't. A lot of, I
Yeah.
mean, it was a very difficult time. Do you know how many really smart women I know who love to read smut novels?
Well, it was funny because I got to a point where I was like, "Oh my god, how many different ways can they describe this act?" Like I kind of got sick of it. I just was like, I just want to read like the romance part because man, I could never write 3 chapters of the content that is in some of those. But it was just like my,
It's
my
escape. It's
yeah, my
escape.
carriage lost
Yeah.
control and he came and rescued me, but he was actually a jerk. But then I found out it was because his dad was mean. It was just like very like low barrier of mental exertion to read these stories. So, but it was
Hmm.
something for me to do that just, I mean, I could just sit down and read it. I had always made fun of the people. I
I
couldn't, I
yeah.
tried to read a book that was like about the rise of Hitler and all of these things coming, which would
Hmm.
be like a typical like anything European history. I'm like all about like I love those books, and I just was like, first of all, I know it's only bad news that's coming in this book. Like
Spoiler
I
alert.
know where this is
Spoiler
going.
alert.
And I
Uh-huh.
was like, I can't, I will come back to this book later because it's very well written, but it was too much. So even if it's just like finding books that you like or join a book club, but you don't even have to read, like, can we just agree you don't have to read the book and you just are going to make it your night to go chat with people?
That's
Just to
hilarious.
put it, my thing is like, you just have to put it on the calendar
Hmm.
and make it happen. And you have to fight for it. And I mean,
Well, well, and I think it's also a priority thing because for years, let's talk about money and self-care. For years, I would not spend money on myself, but I didn't bat an eye at spending $5,000 on an attorney from one of my kids.
oh, sure.
And I'm not saying I'm not saying anyone has unlimited funds. That is not what I'm saying at all. But you know, so much I just do things differently now than I did the first time around. And I'm not saying spend a fortune on yourself, but there are some things that bring me joy that I would not have spent money on 15, 20 years ago that I spend money on now. And it may just be actually for me, what brings me joy is spending money on people who are experts who can do things around my home because I'm happy in my home. I want to be in a peaceful home. And so I have paid a lovely self-taught woman to landscape my front yard. It's beautiful. And now she's working on the backyard. I, for the first time in my life in the last few years, started paying people who are very good at cleaning houses to clean my house. I would have felt incredible guilt about that for my entire previous adult life. And we can dive into what the heck that's about, right? I did not come from a family of means, and they never would have paid anyone to do anything. Like everybody did everything themselves, right? And so to bring people in to make my home peaceful and what is the word I'm looking for? To make it peaceful and to make it a like a not a shelter, but a haven.
Oprah used to say, your home should rise up to meet you.
Mm, yeah.
Which is like
Well,
such an Oprah thing to say, but it's
it
like,
is.
this is your
Yeah.
home.
I mean, Oprah also has avocado orchards at her home, so I feel like sure it probably does rise up to meet her. I mean, I get it though. I mean, because I had the front beds in my front yard landscaped, and it was not extravagant. It's not extravagant, but I said I want a combination of a British garden and a Disney villain. And she pulled it off. She did. I love it. So I love pulling into my driveway now. I'm not like ashamed. I don't pull into my driveway and go, okay, that's something I need to take care of, and that's something I need to take care of, and I haven't done that yet, and this looks really bad, and blah blah blah. So for me, that's what self-care looks like, is spending money to make
Mhm.
my home a refuge. That's what I'm trying to think of.
So,
To make
yeah.
my home a refuge.
So
Yeah.
something I started doing during the lockdown, like I guess this was life changing for me, guys. Was the pandemic life changing for you? Yes, I'm sure. But during that, so I used to get stressed, and I'm not saying I don't do this anymore, but I used to get stressed and anxious and angry clean all of the kid shit that was everywhere. And at a
Mm-hmm.
certain point, I was like, they don't even care, like if their room is clean.
Mm-mm.
So I
No.
went, guess what, guys? I'm going to make my bedroom nice. I'm
Mm-hmm.
reclaiming my bathroom as mine.
Yeah.
And now I try so hard. If the state of the house stresses me out, I go to my room
Yeah.
and I make my bed and I fluff the pillows and I notice, oh my gosh, the suitcase from traveling 2 months ago is still sitting there. I put it away and I make my room feel
Mm-hmm.
nice, and then I just stay in there. Like
Oh yeah.
what's happening outside this door isn't happening, but at least I can sit. And I never was a person that ever made my bed. It never mattered to me because I would just get up and leave. Who cares? And the next time I saw my bed, I was getting in it. And then
Mm-hmm.
while I was working at home for almost 2 years, first of all, if I had known I was going to be home for 2 years, I would have bought a desk. But instead, I used a TV tray for 2 years. All right. It wasn't enough, guys. I should have bought a desk. Anyway, but I sat in this chair staring at my bed
Mm-hmm.
and its shabbiness and no art on the walls and stuff. And I kind of started going, well, I would kind of like to have a nice view of my bed. And I bought new bedding. And yeah, I mean, none of this was crazy expensive. It was just taking the time to go, if I'm going to look at this all day, it's stressing me out to look at a sheets everywhere, pillows still on the floor. Like, so every morning I started making my bed. I mean, I don't do that now, but I will say that it's the first thing that I try to attack if the situation in my house and its cleanliness is frustrating me.
Yeah.
Like the thing that I get most pleasure out of is being able to walk into my little section of the house
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and my kids, I'm not saying my kids aren't allowed in my room, of course, but you know what? They don't hang out in my room. Like the second they're playing tag and somebody runs through my room, I'm like, nope, you turn around.
Mm-hmm.
You
I
play
know
tag
exactly.
in the
Exactly.
rest. This is
Well,
not a tag area. We don't wrestle on mommy's bed. No.
no. But I mean, I think that's a good point. I think we all need our own space. And I don't mean our own space as a couple if you're part of a couple. I mean, we all need our own space. Even if it's, I mean, I've had friends take closets, tiny, tiny closets, and turn them into a tiny little space where they can just sit by themselves or read or whatever it is they do. And then for people who are outdoor people, that can be, if you have access to a yard, that can be someplace in your yard. But I mean, I think as adults, it's so easy, or as parents, or as people who are caregivers, it's so easy to give and give and give and give. And I always felt bad. I was like, oh, I want my kids to feel welcome in any parts of my house, except that's not a great boundary. It's not a great boundary. And so I do things so differently now, that if my granddaughter, she has her little bucket of makeup that she can use sitting at my dressing table. But the rule is, if you use it, you put it away. And I'm not screamy about it, but it does get put away because she knows that she won't be able to use it anymore if she doesn't do that. And then if she leaves her stuff in my room, that bothers me more than almost anything else. And so I will say, hey, I need you to come get this stuff, like immediately, not you can do it later, because everything else I'm a little bit, yeah, you can do that later about. But if it's your stuff in my room or in my office, I will go, no, this is not a waiting thing. This is a you come and get it and you put it where it goes thing, because this is my space. And that is, again, a modeling behavior that we can do for our kids. And it took me a while to get here, but I flipped that and said, okay, your bedroom is your bedroom. And I don't do this whole I pay for the house, so do it my way thing. Well, I do that for the public, for the common areas. But if it's your room, it can be whatever way you want it to be, as long as it does not draw mice, rats, insects, and as long as you don't damage the walls or the
Well, and
house.
yeah, and I kind of have a like, in the event of a fire, I don't want the fireman to trip and die on his way to save you. So, or her way to save you. And I remember when I was a kid, I don't know why, I would just take off my clothes. And they're just everywhere. I don't know why. I do not do that as a grown up. At a minimum, just drape it over the foot of my bed, but I
Yeah.
usually fold it up and put it away before I change every day when I get home. I'm like, goodbye, uncomfortable clothes. Hello, velour sweatpant outfit. But I put the stuff away. But when I was a kid, I remember my mom coming in to say good night to me, and her like angrily like kicking a path through the room. She's like, if there's a fire, that fire people aren't going to be able to save you. They're going to trip and die. And now I'm like, yep, I get it, mom. And it was also so infuriating to her because some of it would be like brand new, like she just bought it for me. And
Mm.
I had a lack of respect for that brand new Abercrombie and Fitch men's medium flannel.
I have to say, this is probably, I'm sure some people will judge me. I do drop my clothes wherever I take them off. Not always,
Well,
but
that's your
um,
prerogative.
yeah, but I think it's once again hilarious to just think about how your mind works. That you and your mom were like, well, in the event of a fire,
Oh
they're
yeah, no, I
not going to be
have.
able to save you.
Okay, so there was a period of time many years ago that I worked for a company and I sold uniforms, like uniforms that like the people at Jiffy Lube wear, like that type of thing. And I sold fire retardant clothing for like welders and stuff like that. I had to watch a lot of videos on fires and how quickly things burn
Oh,
and why
okay. Yeah,
you
yeah,
need
yeah.
to have the fire retardant outfit on. It was to teach me so I could sell it, but all it did was
Mhm.
freaking terrify me. And actually, one year, this is anxiety speaking, but one year for Mother's Day, Casey gave me an axe that to keep under my bed. It's not there now because it would not be safe with the children I have to have an axe under my bed. But I literally was like, okay, if the hallway is on fire and I need to get to my kid, I want to be able to chop through my closet. Like these are the things that my brain would think about. So, and each of my kids in the upstairs has like a fire ladder so that they can get
Mhm.
out, and I have fire blanket. As a matter of fact, I owned N95 masks because before I knew what they were, because several years ago I put together like a fire kit and it is in my nightstand and it has fire blankets. Uh, and N95 masks because it was like the most, like the nicest respirator type thing I could get without being a complete nut job and buying like a fire person's like respirator. But I was like, if I need to get through this house and save everybody, I'm going to wrap myself in this blanket. I'm going to put this mask on. I have flashlights and a fire extinguisher. This is also Dateline. This is Dateline's fault as well. We've done a lot of episodes on like parents that ended up in jail because their kid's bedroom caught on fire first and then they actually didn't really do it. I mean, I'm not concerned about going to jail, but I was watching it going, oh my God, if my kid's bedroom caught on fire, what would I do? So, yeah, all the fire. I don't know why I started talking about this, but yes, I have it's gotten better. I don't think I lay in bed at night anymore thinking, I think I already have the plan pretty good as to how I'm going to rescue everyone. But they all know, like, if the smoke alarm's going off and your doorknob is hot, you jump out that window. Like, you jump out that window. If you can't get the ladder to work, it's all, you're on the second story. Like, the worst is going to happen is a broken leg. Like, they all know. Like, throw a chair through the window if you can't get it open. Like, anyway, these are really discussions if you can have them with your kids without terrifying them. They do need to know what to do in the event of a fire. I'm just extra worried about it. Extra.
I mean, the good news is, Stephanie, in a few years, your boys will be climbing out of their windows.
Oh, that's one of the reasons that the alarm guy is coming today, because one of them cut the wires. I don't think he understood what he was doing necessarily, but he cut the wires on the sensor for his window. And you better believe they're not going to know the code to deactivate the alarm. And we really need to know when that window's open because it's the one facing the pool. And I don't think it's a far journey to, could I jump out the window and make it in the pool?
Oh, I assure you. Yeah.
So speaking of identity crises, I know that I've mentioned on here before that my degree is in acting. And I haven't acted until recently for like 20 years. As a matter of fact, Casey had never seen me perform in anything. We've been together 22 years. So a little not been acting in a long time, but I've really been wanting to. All the acting classes in the Tulsa area are for children. So I had reached out to somebody, and at one point they were like, well, we do have an 18 and up class. But you guys, it was probably like 18 to 24. And I was just really afraid I was going to be like Anne Frank's mom and like 20 years older than everyone. So but I was really wanting to do it. And I was terrified. Like there would be acting workshops occasionally when, a Broadway show would come to town and maybe you could do a Saturday thing. And I was just terrified. And then, my personal hero, Dak Shepard, was talking about like, you can try something and fail or you cannot try and have the same outcome. Like either way, it didn't happen, right? If you didn't take the risk. So I was like, okay, I got to figure this out. So I don't have time. I really don't have time to like be in a play. Like if I went and auditioned for something, that's every night for several weeks. There's just no way we could make that work. And so actually a year ago, a professional actor, a working actor, who's originally from Oklahoma, during the pandemic, he moved back to Tulsa with his family, and he has opened a like professional acting studio for TV and film, which everyone locally is just theater people. Like it's just completely different. So I was really scared, but I signed up for his first class, and I was terrified that I was going to walk in and be by far the oldest person there. And I think I've mentioned this before, but it is people from their 20s all the way to their 70s, people of varying degrees. And I mean, at first I had forgotten how to act. Like it is a skill. It wasn't like riding a bike. Like I had to get it back. And it was very terrifying. People who were like in regular, local theater productions or I had seen on TV and local commercials were in this class with me. They all seemed to know each other. That was really scary too. I was like, I'm not plugged into the theater people. Like none of these people knew me. I didn't know them. And it took me probably 8 months before I could even say the words, I'm an actor. I would always in conversation be like, well, I studied acting. Like that's not the same thing as saying I am an actor. So I like remembered how to do it. And we had a showcase which was my dumb idea because Casey's been like, gosh, I'd really like to, because I'd be like, Cody, who's my acting coach, he said that's my best work ever. Like, it's the best he's ever seen me do. And, he's so proud of me. And people were like, Stephanie, do you have an agent? You should get an agent. I'm like, okay, how do I do that? I still haven't figured that out. But these people who have agents were telling me I should get an agent, which is just a gigantic compliment. And so Casey was like, well, I'd like to come see you act. So I watched the show Barry. Barry's trying to be an actor. He's actually a murderer. Check out the show on HBO. Bill Hader's in it. He's from Tulsa. It's a great show. But they do showcases and invite like agents and talent people to come in the show. And I know that's a real thing. So I had asked, are we ever going to do anything like that? And then by the next week, I got an email saying, we're going to do a showcase. And I was like, shit. No, I have to actually do this. So anyway, so I participated and I do feel kind of bad because I had several friends that were like, when you do your first performance, we want to be there. And I did not tell any of them that this showcase was happening. I was just terrified. I was terrified, when you're acting and you're not focused and you're not dropped in and you kind of go out of body and it's kind of like, what just happened? And I was afraid that would happen. And 20 people I knew would be there. So I only invited Casey. My mom wanted to come and I was like, I'm doing a scene from, I can't remember the name of the show, but it was about it had Jessica Chastain in it, and she and her husband are having a huge fight about sex and the end of their marriage. And I was like, no, I'm sorry, you cannot come. You cannot come. As a matter of fact, because of the scene that me and my partner did, they had to say no children allowed because of the language in mine. I didn't pick this scene, guys. It was just like the most recent scene that we'd been working on. And I was like, so let's do that one. I was so scared. I was so scared. And another thing that happened was some of the ladies in the class who'd been friends for 50 years and acting together and stuff forever, they wanted to do a scene from The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and they needed one more person. And they emailed me asking if I would be in this scene with them. I mean, I was literally like, I'm in. They're inviting me. They could have asked a lot of other people and they chose me. So I felt like finally like I'm in the in crowd. Like I was so excited. And I'm sure these women who are like in their 60s and 70s they didn't know that I was like, this is fantastic. They want me to be like, they're the leads in all the plays. They could have asked anybody and they asked me. And I'm so proud of myself. I'm so proud of myself that I took this gigantic risk that I could have literally thrown up about. I was so scared. And I was bad at first. I was bad. I hadn't done it in forever. It's like I left the planet every time I would get up to do my scene. So if you've never done an acting class, like you're usually paired up with somebody, and then every week 2 people at a time go up and you do your scene, and then the coach coaches you, and then you kind of do it a couple more times, and maybe he stops and starts you. So you're actively being instructed in front of a crowd of people. So there's that, which that was what theater school was for me. But it was also just, I'd go up there and perform and I would be like, I don't even remember what I just did. I couldn't even tell you about my choices or intentions. I think I said all the words. So I'm so incredibly proud of myself. And I have to say, last week, we've been studying like all these different types of acting and research and things, and professional actors, guys, they spend tons of time preparing for something that looks very easy. But anyway, my acting coach was like, okay, we're going to have fun this month. We're going to try to like take all the seriousness off and try to remember that this was fun. And we did an activity Wednesday night where we all stood in a circle, and visualization, again, is the thing that actors do. So he had us all close our eyes and think about a time in our childhood that was a happy time. And so I was imagining myself like 7 or 8 playing at Grissom Elementary on the big toy, playing sand tag, running around in the pea gravel. And, you're supposed to be a vision. And his point was like, remember what it was like to be a kid when you were free and you could be creative. I almost burst into tears because that isn't me anymore. I don't run around in the pea gravel. I mean, I literally, can I please sit on the bench and watch you play, guys? And I was like, I want to get back to a place of lightness. I am not a light person anymore. Like, I need to watch comedy. I need to watch Ted Lasso and Schitt's
Hmm.
Creek, and that's it. Like, I've forgotten how to be light. And I don't know
Well,
if it's like it, you know.
I think what you're describing, though, I mean, as you're talking about your acting classes, uh, you're bright and you're alive, and I think it's joy. I mean, happiness, I'm not that excited about. I don't even really know what happy is, but I think joy is something that we get little glimpses of and that we have to make time for.
Yeah, and
And
I have to fight my ass off to be there every Wednesday.
yes, yes.
It's,
And
yeah.
yeah, and so I mean, I want to give you kudos for going, okay, this is important to me. It scares me, but it sounds like maybe kind of an exciting, like a positive anxiety also that I want to do this thing. And you and I've talked about the boundaries that you have around Wednesday nights when you do this thing. And I mean, that it really is carving out time for joy
Yeah, and
and
it's
not
so
feeling guilty about
stressful.
it.
Yeah, I mean, and then there are times I don't ever feel guilty if Casey's here with the kids, but if he has to work an event and, it's a Wednesday night, so like most people aren't available, people, especially
Hmm.
like high school babysitter can't babysit on a Wednesday night. So it's got to be like my mom. Well, my mom often has Bible study on Wednesday night. So I'm asking her to give up something so that she can watch my kids. And I don't want her to have to stay up late. So I usually, classes from 6 to 9. So I usually ask if I can go earlier in the session so I can leave by 8. Like there's just so much. I
Hmm.
remember when we were rehearsing for the showcase, I needed my mom to watch the kids because there was a rehearsal on Tuesday night. And the rehearsal was supposed to be from 6 to 8. And I don't know what the hell I was thinking because I've been an actor my whole life. Rehearsals are never how long they say they're going to be. But I
Hmm.
had, no, actually, I'd asked my neighbor across the street because my mom had Bible study. I'd asked my neighbor across the street, can the kids hang out with you? And they have one kid, they love each other. So she's like, yeah, we'll go. He has basketball practice, but after that, we'll go to the hideaway and get pizza. Like she had this whole thing planned. But I'm looking at my watch at 7:30, at 7:45, and I'm like, there is no way in hell we're going to be done on time. I said I was going to be done at 8. It's a school night. And I'm
Hmm.
about to burst into tears because I hate being the person that's like, everybody needs to work around what I need. But I had to pull the assistant to the acting coach aside. I was like, hey, I'm sorry. I thought this was going to be over at 8. And anyway, I had to be like, no, you don't understand. Like, I have to leave. Like, I'm trying to figure out. And I was like 4 scenes away from rehearsing. And this is for a performance. So, and I'm terrified of doing anyway. And I had to go in the bathroom and cry because I was stressed out that I was inconveniencing someone because they had my kids on a school night and I had told them a certain time and I was an idiot for expecting to be done at 8 because rehearsals are usually 2 hours longer than they promise. And then I was having to ask people to wait and let my scene go first out of order. So I had to go in the bathroom and cry. And then I had to like collect myself and try to not look like I'm crying and then go to her and say, I am so sorry. I think it's going to be after 9 before my scene partner and I get to practice and I have someone watching my kids. I have to go. And
Hmm.
they were so professional about it. She pulled Cody aside. No one even noticed. Cody was like, hey guys, Stephanie has to leave soon, so that we're going to change the order around. It was fine. But
Hmm.
I was so stressed about it. However, I am so proud of myself that this week I didn't want to go. I mean, it's almost every week where I'm like, I'm so tired. I don't, the work involved in going, I just want to crawl in bed. But you know what? If you stay at home with your kids, you don't get to crawl in bed anyway. So you might as well go to acting class. But every time, I actually think it would be interesting to interview Casey because
Hmm.
every time I come home, I am like, we did this, and this was so funny, and I did this. I think I'm not even the same person for the whole rest of the day. We like stay up till midnight because I'm like energized and reborn and have done
Mm.
something fun. But it isn't without a huge amount of stress to make it happen and to block off that time, I guess is my point.
Well, and even just now, I mean, the way you're talking about it, you're kind of, incandescent, your energy is high. It obviously energizes you. I think that's what we're asking people to do. In my work, I lead peer groups for people who lead organizations, business owners, CEOs, et cetera. And during the pandemic, I asked things like, what do you want us to hold you accountable for? What are some successes and challenges, et cetera. But I added what brings you joy because, oh my goodness, probably all the time, but definitely during the pandemic, people needed to be making time for joy. And there were so many people who said, Shelley, I cannot answer that question.
Yeah,
And,
I don't
and it,
know.
yeah,
Yeah.
they didn't know. And some of them, it took 2 or 3 months, but it literally changed their lives to go, okay, what does bring me joy? Because I would say, what brings you joy and how are you making time for it? And so it might take them 2 or 3 months to figure out what that was. But then once they figured out what it was, they started making time for it. And it changed them like it's changed you, where you
Right.
have this thing that you look forward to that is energizing, that you can't stop talking about when you get home. And that is, and let's talk about it. You're taking what, like 2 hours a week to do
Yeah,
that. And
it's
I
from
know it's
six.
hard.
It's from 6 to 9. I'm taking these 3 whole hours a week
Mm-hmm.
for me.
Yeah, so it's not a huge amount of time. I know it's a pain and I know it takes a lot of logistics to pull off, but just having one, that short amount of time where you focus on joy. Okay, I'm going to get a little deep here. I don't think we were put on this earth to just get through the day and hope that we can sleep and then wake up when our alarm goes off and get through another day. I think that is a real affront to whomever or whatever our creator is. And so in some ways, I think you are, um, I think it's, as I said, I think it's an affront to do things that way. And so when we make time to actually relish our lives and to find joy in what we're doing, I think there's a real purpose in that.
Well, and I think you may have to try several things to even
Oh
figure out
God,
what that
yes.
is. I know that you wrote on here, I had a misguided attempt to do tap lessons,
Oh God, yes.
which I have
Uh,
also tried that at some point during parenting.
well, so I took dance class as a kid, like from 5 until I went to college. So I know how to tap dance. Like I know how, right? I wanted, and this is, oh gosh, this is such a long discussion. So I wanted the feeling I had of tap. I loved dancing. I love dancing still. I like going to hear live music and dancing. But I thought I want to take tap class again. And really, what I realized after I started taking the class was I really wanted that feeling again of having of working with a team and having a great teacher who was really my teacher was kind of a, not kind of, he was a father figure and influenced me and probably everybody else who took from him greatly. And so I went to take these classes, absolutely nothing against the dance school, absolutely nothing against the instructors. You cannot go home again. You cannot go home again. And dancing at 53 is not what dancing at 13 is
Well,
like.
there's a
And
reason why I haven't tried to remember how to do a back handspring. Like as
well,
six.
yeah, and it wasn't the physical requirements. It just, I didn't have any patience. The group was pretty diverse. I just found, and to your point, I had to ask my husband to watch my granddaughter. And I thought that I'm getting frustration out of this, not joy. And do I
Right.
really want to ask my husband to watch her for an hour and a half? And do I want to deal with, my husband is the fun grandparent. And goodness knows everybody should have a fun grandparent. I am the parent grandparent, right? I'm the one who has all the boundaries in place and all that stuff.
Well,
And so,
it would be unhealthy for her if you
mhm.
were also the fun grandparent because
Oh,
she lives with
totally,
you. I
totally.
tell my
I
kids all
raise
the
her.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, my kids are like, I'm gonna go live with grandma. And I'm like, you know what? If you lived with her permanently, your life would be so different than
Oh,
what
so
you think it
different.
will be.
Yeah.
You'd be eating vegetables. She would limit your screen time. She would make you go to bed. But when
Oh,
you
yeah,
see
yeah,
grandma
yeah.
one night a week, it's party
Hmm.
time. Like, you don't understand. That's not what my mom was like when I
Oh,
was a
yeah.
kid.
No.
Mm-mm.
And my granddaughter needs that grandparent, right? So
Yes.
she needs my husband to be the fun professional wrestling, let's eat candy grandparent, right? But what that meant was when I got back from dance class was maybe they'd eaten, maybe they hadn't. The living room was destroyed, and I'm not criticizing my husband when I say this. So I stopped doing it. I did make an attempt, and I'm glad I did because I would have wondered about it always if I hadn't done that. Here are the things that I ended up doing that bring me joy. I started my own business, which might sound ridiculous, but I love the work that I do. I love doing it for myself. I love having the freedom to do it the way I want to do it. That brings me joy. I travel with my husband, and I have some really serious boundaries around that. I am known for my out of office emails that say, here are the ways that taking vacation make you more productive and why you should tune out. And so my kids know, my friends know, my clients know that if I'm traveling with my husband, that is my time and don't bother me. And then lastly, I launched this podcast with you. I mean, this is something, you know, I've talked about. This is something that it brings me joy because I have so much energy. I have so much energy and so much almost like momentum with all the stuff that I want to share with people that it brings me joy to actually finally being able to say it. I mean, I get phone calls and text messages all the time about a kid who ran away or a kid who needs to go inpatient or I'm thinking of adopting. Can you help me talk? Can you talk with me about it? It is freeing and it fills me with joy to be able to have those conversations on, you know, in a podcast where anybody can listen and anybody can get something out of it if they choose to.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been really beneficial for me too, the podcast. I think it's been rewarding to be able to have gone through things that aren't necessarily easy. When, I mean, I'm not over here on easy street, but to be able to take like all of the energy and effort and obsession of researching things and helping people to kind of a bigger level. And I know also you and I are working very hard to try to remove the shame of the difficulties
Mm-hmm.
of parents from
Yeah.
people. I
Stigma.
have realized more and more, it's like, did you know if you talk about your kid having ADHD, almost every person you talk to is like, oh, I have ADHD. Oh, yeah, my son has ADHD. Oh, yeah, my wife has ADHD. Oh, my mom has ADHD. Like, everybody has it, guys. Like, that nobody, unless I talk about it, that's not
Mm-hmm.
information somebody volunteers necessarily. And it's been so fascinating to be like, oh, that's interesting. You're a NASA scientist. Okay, cool. Or, oh, you have ADHD and you have your own successful business or,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So I think the more you talk about things, first of all, it just removes this, like, I don't know, this made up shame. Because honestly, I think almost every parent is having a hard time with something. The stakes may be higher for some parents than others. But I mean, it's like, even when I think I have one kid figured out, you know what? Somebody else in this house comes out swinging with a different issue. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
no, 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 no. You're supposed to be easy. Our child therapist, I was saying, you know what? I feel like things are really managed over here. But this
Mm-hmm.
one kid who's never the squeaky wheel is a hot mess right now. And he's like, well, actually, he's probably had to hold it together
Right.
because he doesn't
Right.
want to be a problem. And now
Mm-hmm.
that things have quieted down, he feels comfortable going, wah! And I'm like, oh, okay. So, yay, great. Now we're going to work on, this child having support. And I want him to feel comfortable, even if things are wild in the house coming to me. But yeah, the podcast has been really good for me. And then we started horseback riding lessons for one of my kids. It's a very common recommendation for kids with anxiety to do something with animals, and he's obsessed with animals. I think he gets animals better than he gets anything. So he started doing horseback riding, and we recently switched to a new place, and we went to his first couple of lessons, and I really liked the lady, and it seemed like they had enough horses that maybe additional people could take lessons at the same time. And I just said, do adults ever, like, do moms ever do horseback riding lessons with their kid? And she goes, I mean, you could if you wanted. And I looked at Casey and I'm like, what do you think? Because I have this, I'm not an outdoorsy person, guys. I want to be inside like at all times. Unless I'm like in Tuscany or something, drinking wine on a balcony of someplace. But I have this idea in my head, like I want to ride a horse fast through a field at least one time in my life and like feel like I'm in, because I've ridden horses before on a trail, and like the horse is literally trained to just follow the horse in front of them. I wasn't doing anything. So I asked my son, who's doing the horseback riding lessons, I said, what would you think? And you can say no, you don't have to you're not gonna hurt my feelings. What would you think if I tried to take lessons at the same time as you? Because there's no way I can add, like, this can't be at a separate time. It's 38 minutes from our house. Like, and he goes, I think that could be fun. Now, before my first lesson, he was kind of upset one night and I was trying to do some digging with him. And he finally said, I'm afraid I'm going to hurt your feelings. And I was like, but you can't hurt my feelings. Just tell me the truth. And he's like, I really don't want you to do horseback riding lessons with me. And I was like, okay. And I said, you know what? I'm so glad that you told me that because this is your thing and I don't want to take away from it. And that is totally fine. But then he said, well, what if we tried it a couple times and we saw how it went? And then he's like, is it okay if after that I say that, I don't want you to come? And I said, yes. So I had my first horseback riding lesson last Sunday. Oh my God, I got my ass kicked so fast. I was riding an intermediate horse, which means he wanted to go fast and he always wanted to be first. So like, it didn't matter how slowly everyone else was going. Teddy wanted to get going. And, I think I got like the generalities of like controlling the horse as far as like speed and turning and whoa and all of that. My body is not strong enough to keep me in the saddle once we start trotting. Like you're not supposed to be like, whoa, like all over the place, like a rag doll. You're supposed to have this muscle control that holds you in the saddle. So that was hilarious because I was physically all these muscles, squeezing the horse, core, trying to stand up straight, sit up straight. And I told the instructor, I was like, I haven't worked out in forever. Like I'm very out of shape. And she said, this will be easier when you get in shape. She's like, you need to She's like, it's only hard because you're so out of shape. I was like, got it. Okay. But I didn't know. I mean, you just watch people ride horses and it's kind of like if you see somebody jogging down the street, it really doesn't look like they're doing that much.
Yeah.
And then you try to jog down the street and you're like, oh my God, this is so hard. So it was very hard. I have been very sore all week. I will say I loved it. And I will say I think my son had a really good time. He had me all to himself for like 4 hours. So I'm going to do it again and we'll see. I mean, I literally during it was like, no, I want to quit. I want to quit. This is very hard. I am exerting. This is not exactly how I imagined it. But at one point, Teddy started loping, which is where you just are going. And I mean, I only let him take like 3 steps because I was like, holy shit, I'm going to go fly. I literally was like, this is why you're supposed to wear a helmet when you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh my God, okay, it was fun.
Where do you think that comes from? Your interest in riding a horse through a field? I mean, that feels like a very, like pre-verbal something,
Well, it's like,
what do you think that's about?
Well, I think it's like a total wild freedom, right? If you are just racing a horse through a field, doing what you want to with it. It's like from watching, well, first of all, this is pre-Yellowstone, but we are so obsessed with all of those Taylor Sheridan shows. They're so good and violent. I got tricked. I didn't know they were like mafia
Yeah,
ranch owners.
Yeah.
I was like, damn it, I got sucked into a stressful show, but I love it so much. We're going to keep watching it. But I remember like watching the movie Far and Away. Do you remember that with Tom
Oh,
Cruise and Nicole
sure.
Kidman?
Hmm.
And they're doing the land run, and the people are just galloping, and it's like this wildness, but with control. It just looks
Hmm.
like it looks like the same as maybe driving a race car, like a convertible on the highway that runs up the coast of California. Like it just looks
Okay.
like this thing that should be like, I'm free.
I don't know if I've told you this, but my dad was a jockey.
Really?
Hmm.
Oh, yeah.
He could ride bareback. Now, I knew my dad, but not for very long. He died when I was 2. And so what I know about him is from photos and from what his side of the family has shared with me. And I wasn't exposed to that side of the family very much. What I do know from photos is that he had a six pack and was not, I mean, he's just one of those people I think who was naturally strong. And he was a cowboy and was short. And so that made him well positioned to be a
Well,
jockey.
yeah, you have to be like basically all muscle, small,
Yeah, yeah.
and those core muscles
Hmm.
are like I didn't realize I needed to work at staying in the saddle. Like I thought I was going to be learning how to control a horse, and actually
Mm.
I need to control my muscles that many of them were, I think, rioting the whole time I was trying
Yeah,
to
it's
do
kind of like
this.
parenting. It's kind of like parenting. Like we didn't plan that, but darn it, that is a parallel for parenting. Like you think you're going to control the kid, but really, um,
Oh my gosh, we're just starting this like ADHD parenting thing. So I'll, rave about it when I feel like I should endorse it for our listeners. But one of the things the guy talks about is that your child is not the patient, you are.
oh yeah,
And you
totally.
need to
Hmm.
change your behavior and your
Hmm.
reaction to your kid's behavior, and then your kid will change. It's so frustrating.
Hmm.
I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
no, I'm great. He needs to change. But the whole point is Casey and I's reaction to behavior that we don't like needs to change so that we're rewarding the right thing and not giving
Hmm.
attention to the wrong thing. So
Well,
that's been fascinating and irritating.
hmm well, in some ways, I'm fortunate that I get a second shot at parenting because I'm definitely doing it differently the second time around. Okay, so hopefully we have talked enough about why it's important to know what brings you joy, make time for it. And I know it always, oh gosh, I can't tell you how frustrating it's always been, especially it's always doctors who have told me, well, you need to make time to exercise and you need to make time to blah, blah, doctors, therapists, I don't remember who else. And so I hope it doesn't come off that way. Like
Well,
we
because
know
it
you're
makes it
busy.
sound, yeah, it
Like
makes
it's
it
just so
sound.
simple, right?
Well,
Like,
there are
mhm.
periods of time where I don't even know what day it is because
Right, right.
we're white knuckling it through the whole day. So not
Yeah.
to oversimplify anything
No, no,
for
no. I mean,
sure.
actually, honestly, I am sitting in one of those times right now. My son had surgery a week ago yesterday, and I very misguidedly went, oh, he's going to be in the hospital for 2 days. And so I'll have all this time to get this work done. And I'll be in a hotel, and it will be like, I don't know what I was thinking. My kids didn't, before now, nobody had surgery. And so let me tell you, that's not how it goes. You get nothing done, you barely sleep. And so I am sitting in a time now where I actually had to say something to one of the moms in PTA who asked me to work on a fundraiser. And I said, I am out of capacity. Like, not I am busy. That's a different
Hmm.
thing. I am out of capacity
Yeah.
because I cannot, to your point, like I'm not sure what the day is. Like I don't know what the day of the week is. I have to keep checking my phone to see what the day of the week is. And so I'm not saying, hey, just Just figure it out. It's super easy. That's not what either one of us are saying, but it is important to actually find ways to figure out what brings you joy and to make time for it, and also just to have some space for yourself, just some space in, where you live that is your space, and where you can at least partially relax and sort of let your guard down.
Yeah, and for some people, that's, the whole like, what is it, revenge scrolling or whatever, that, people stay up so late at night because everyone's asleep, or people love to get up early. I don't understand those people. But I
Oh, I am that
love,
person now. I am that person now. I
no,
used to, yeah,
there
it's
was,
shifted. Hmm.
I can't. I would say at like between 9 and 10, my whole body is like, I'm here. I am ready to be the night watchman. Via evolution, I'm going to keep the whole camp safe until around 3 a.m. But
Yeah.
I need to sleep till 9 or 10. So if we can make that work, but that's not a real thing. I think there's been a lot of news articles about how bad the revenge scrolling thing is. And I just want to say, if that is the only piece you get all day, is looking at silly TikTok videos and staying up too late, live it up, man. Just live it up. I mean,
I haven't seen those articles, but I can already tell you I don't give them a whole lot of serious thought.
well,
Like,
I always see them because it's midnight and I'm on my phone looking for something to read, and that's what Apple News is
man,
suggesting.
there's so much out there about how everything we're doing is wrong. I just,
I know.
it's exhausting to try to be perfect all the time. I mean, I think that's what we're asking people to do, is to be perfect all the time
I
and
love
live up
like
to a standard that's
you,
just not.
you, yeah, you could have been peeling your potatoes wrong your whole life. Click this
Hmm.
art. I'm like, good Lord, you know what? I'm good with the way I peel my potato. Okay. Like, I don't
Yeah.
have to be perfect in every activity. I will say that something I've added to my life in the last couple of years is a wine club membership.
Hmm.
That is very low bar of entry as far as time. You
Mm.
just drink that wine when you have your dinner or whatever. Um, but the wines are very affordable. It's like $13 a bottle or something. They send you six a month. And you have like a little concierge person that you tell, yes, I liked that. No, I didn't like it. And they send you, firstly, feel free to be a sponsor of our podcast. They send you like, they send you a little card with like a photo of where the grapes were grown and a
Oh,
little bit
nice.
of like how the wine was made and how it smells and the body and acidity and everything. And so I look at that because I don't really understand why I like some things and I don't. So I look at that and then I'm like, okay, this is the wine we're drinking tonight, Casey. And then we drink it. And then honestly, I still haven't made sense of what they're describing on the card versus what I'm
Hmm.
experiencing. I'd love to actually take some kind of class or something. But that's just a fun novelty thing. Send me 6 bottles of wine here and there. And, or
Hmm.
maybe your thing is cheese. Or maybe you just need to subscribe to People magazine and read a trashy magazine once a month or something. Like it can be really little.
Yes, I have so many thoughts. That's actually part of how I got remarried, was a wine tasting. That's a whole other podcast. All right, so I think we're going to wrap it up. We would love to hear from you. When we ask what brings you joy, do you know, or is that something that you have to think hard about? When you figure it out, we'd love to know what it is. And for a couple of reasons. One, it helps us to feel like we're not screaming into a void. Two, I think it also helps other people like you and like us to, it helps encourage them to also figure out what
Yeah.
brings them joy and to carve out time for that. And so hopefully it's a domino effect. It's not just us talking about it. It's those of you who are listening, figuring out what it is for you and making time for it. So
Yeah, without guilt. We're not here to guilt anybody, guys. If it's too much, then next time you use the bathroom, just stay in there an extra 5 minutes and just enjoy that piece. If that's all you can get.
you know what's really funny? That reminds me, quick story. My grandfather was notorious for staying in the bathroom for quite a while, and now I understand why. Now I get why
It's
he
a
is
very
like, you know
safe.
what? just going to be in the bathroom.
And I will say, I know that children are prone to following their parents into the bathroom, and mine are no exception. But at some point, I said, Mommy does not hold conversations through the bathroom doors. Like, I'm going to go to the bathroom, and if you come in here, you're just going to get yelled at. Like, we're not discussing dinner, or can you go do this, or can I have a piece of gum while I'm in the bathroom? It's like 5 minutes, guys. Just give me the 5 minutes. And so I have to remind them, Mommy, I hear, and I'm like, I'm in the bathroom. I don't have conversations when I'm in the bathroom. I just say it every time. Like, buzz off, please. I'd like to enjoy my 5 minutes in this little tiny
luxury. Yeah, yes, it's a luxury. Your own bathroom time. All right, I think we're finished.
All right, thanks for listening, villagers.
Thank you so much for listening and for sharing.
We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like and subscribe to our podcast, and maybe even take a couple extra seconds to write a review so others can find us and join our village. We really want to hear what challenges you're facing and maybe even feature your comments and questions on the show. So if you'd like to contribute to our village, please leave us a voicemail at 918-409-0562 or send us an email at wherethefismyvillage@gmail.com. Thanks, and we'll see you right here next week. Where the F is My Village is produced by Shelly Cademy and me, Stephanie Ferris, with editing by Stephanie Ferris. Special thanks to Jason Cademy for writing and creating our original music. Where the F is My Village is an SPSC production.